The Great Pyramid of Giza, the Newton Stone, and the Holy Grail. What do these things have in common? Aside being all part of the ancient history, they all have a sense of mystery to them that experts are still trying to explain. Although there are some logical explanations, it still doesn't explain exactly how or what, or most importantly, who, like the skulls of Motala. Who are these people, and why was it so jarring to find their remains located at the lakeside locale near the city of Motala, Sweden? These bone remains and skull fragments have left archaeologists baffled as they have been studying these Stone Age setups of human skulls for some time. At least 11 different skulls have been found on the site, and oddly enough they are the remnants of adult men and women as well as children and babies. So right away archaeologists wondered if this was some kind of ritual sacrifice or a deeper religious meaning that was involved with the skulls. Dating the bones has proven to scientists that they're all about 8,000 years old, and they were intermixed with ancient animal bones too, furthering pushing the idea of religious theory. But the skulls are so old that nobody can really say for sure what they were there for or how they were used. At least 2 of the skulls have been pierced by wooden stakes, and one of the skulls have actually contained broken skull bones from an entirely different ancient human. In 2018, Swedish researchers announced that they were actually healing injuries, or nearly all of the skulls, both adult and children alike, and the majority of the skulls have traces of healing injuries in the same area of the head, as one researcher reported to the Swedish media outlets. They have felt that it appears to be repetitive and there are differences between the men and the women injuries, but the question still remains. Who were they and how did they die, and what do you think? Comment below and let me know, and I hope to see that one comment that says at least aliens. If you are a fan of King Arthur or the Knights of the Round Table, or a complete nerd for medieval times, you'd be excited to know that the sword in the stone is in fact a real thing. No, not Excalibur, but in Italy lies within a stone a sword. According to historians, Galgano Giodotti was a 12th century nobleman who roamed the countryside of what is now known as Italy. Along the way he maimed, killed, pillaged, and plundered along with many of his other esteemed counterparts, but at some point he became tired of the bloodshed. In fact, he supposedly had a vision of the Archangel Michael, who told him to forego fighting and to find God instead. He traveled to the Monte Espi and supposedly had another vision, and this one told him to drive his sword into a large stone there. This would not act as not only to rob Galgano of his weapon, but it also supposedly proved the power of believing in the Lord. Not one to these questions of these visions, Giodotti did just that, as to his surprise, the sword slit right in. And it actually stayed there ever since. Locals even built a sacred chapel around the site, and in fact it is real. The true sword from the 12th century left inside the supposedly impenetrable stone is now still there, and you can even check it out as a tourist, but even now as a mystery, archaeologists and historians still have no clue how it actually got in there. The Nazca lines have baffled people from all over the world, from tourists to historians as well as the locals. Roughly 2,000 years ago, a pre-Inca civilization etched a series of enormous drawings into the dry coastal plain of Peru, also known as the Nazca lines. These geoglyphs also remain largely unknown until the aircraft began flying over the area in 1930, and to this date, well over 1,000 designs have been located. Most are mainly straight lines stretching up to 30 miles, or geometric shapes from trapezoids to spirals, while others actually depict animals such as plants, including a spider, a hummingbird, a monkey, a whale, and a 2-headed snake, a dog, and a humanoid figure, also nicknamed the astronaut. As recently of 2022, 168 new geoglyphs were discovered, and researchers are still trying to understand their purposes. One prominent hypothesis associates from one of them of a water ritual, though other guesses may be more prominent. But aside how unique these lines are, the fact that the designs are equal to each other in length and width, as well as proportionately in size prior to 1930 of their discovery, is what makes the Nazca lines so unique and mysterious. The Holy Grail is considered one of the greatest treasure in Christianity, and it's said to be that the cup that Jesus drank from the Last Supper is also the cup used by Joseph of Arimathea to collect the blood of Christ, and such a cup is sure to be special, which is why humans have not stopped looking for it since its legend originated. As for the location, some say the Knights of Templar had their possession and hid it somewhere unknown. In fact, there are actually several cups claiming to be the original Holy Grail in different locations around the world, come each with its own convincing story as to how the Grail got there, including the Valencia Cathedral in Spain. It also said to be located in other places in Spain, such as the Santa Maria de Monestrat of Catalona and Sinai House Park and Burton-on-Trent, England. Still, historians are amazed at the competition and try to date back the cups. The oldest cup in the world happens to be the chalice of Donna Urraca, a cup made between 200 BC and 180, but still, who knows, maybe this is the real Holy Grail. In nature, there's always something weird phenomena going on, but that's why we still have no idea when, where, or how, or what it was created. But when it comes to crop circles in Jordan and Syria, you'd realize these aren't your ordinary crop circles like the farms in the US, but in fact, these are stones made of circles, or circles made of stones. I don't know. Aerial images taken from the high above the desert plain for decades have shown a large series of stone circles scattered across Jordan. There is actually one circle over the border of Syria as well, and the rocks that make them up are not as smoothly cut as some others on this list, but they are actually laid out in truly massive circles across the flat land. The smallest circle measures up to 720 feet, while the largest is 1,450 feet. The weirdest part is that there are no openings for the entrance anywhere on any of them, so they were just either open pit graves or rudimentary stadiums of some sort, and it's still not clear how they were set up, and no gates or doors. In fact, they just weren't used at all, maybe as livestock? Who knows? Researchers do think that there was actually more circles of these stone circle things built around the region, but still they were also destroyed as recent towns and settlements cropped up. Now these dozen archaeological sites are protected for further destruction or further discussion. Scientists continue to study them but remain baffled of what may have been there long ago. Speaking of stones, the Newton stones, located and found in Scotland, is another odd ancient mystery. In Scotland, the most bizarre and confusing of these is the Newton stones. Standing in Aberdeenshire, the Newton stone was carefully carved into a serpent-like pattern, along with whatever snake-type creature is shown. The stone appears to be boasting some type of flowers in some circles. Unfortunately, the meaning of those images isn't actually known by archaeologists. However, the other side of the stone makes it even more weird. On the back, there are 6 lines of indecipherable text, and there is a series of dash-like lines and carvings that historians are pretty sure date back into the ancient language called Kogam or Ogam. However, there are some of these few lines written in some other mysterious texts, as linguistics have no clue what the second language is or what the message is supposed to represent. Some scholars believe it is a very rough ancient version of Latin from the Romans that occupied the area. Others claim it's some type of slang of ancient Greek, while others wonder if it's a Slavic background of bizarre texts, or it could just be someone's 5-year-old writing random things, or a guy who made the stone and very drunk trying to write his to-do list. But whatever it is, it's still a mystery. What do you think? Although it's not an ancient relic, but it is a group of people who vanished into thin air. On July 22, 1587, John White arrived to Roanoke Island with another 120 people along with him. A few months later, he sailed back to England and hoping to restock on a badly needed supply, but when he finally returned 3 years later, every last resident had vanished. The only clue to their potential whereabouts was the mysterious word Croatoan carved on a tree. Another crow was carved on a tree, while White assumed that the residents have traveled to Croatoan Island, which is now called Hatteras Island. But a storm blew in and prevented White from reaching the island, and he never raised enough money for another search. Some documents suggest that Chief Powhatan killed some of the colonists, but there's no archaeological evidence to back that up. Other theories propose that residents were attacked by native indigenous people or the Spanish, and others assume that the colonists just simply died of natural causes, especially the fact that there would be signs of struggles or bodies or something, but no, there was absolutely nothing. And whatever the case is, the fate of the colonists still remains as an unsolved mystery in American history. Yeah, okay, maybe this isn't too intense, but weird. But you gotta admit, it's pretty random. In Laos, spots is a very odd mystery. These giant stone jars, which seem to be nothing to some people, but how, when, where, and whatever who made them is still a question. They are spread out in a very seemingly random order, and it doesn't appear that they have any rhyme or reason to their placement. They're just giant jars. Some are small, some sit in groups, and the other rest alone on the ground. There are huge jars for some reason, and the biggest one weighing more than a ton, sitting up to 9 feet. A bunch of them do have stone lids sitting next to them or capping the jars themselves, and others don't have lids at all. Simply sitting under the sun alone, many of them are decorated with intricate carvings, but many of them aren't. So the question is, what are them? What are they? What is it? What's going on? These are both questions that modern day researchers that are trying to figure out, as some historians believe that the jars are actually urns and they represent a sacred burial site. Although I sometimes still think about that episode of SpongeBob where Patrick's trying to put the lid in the jar. This is all I could think about when I was finding out about this jar thing. Bodies would also happen to be placed in the jar, but again, there was no site of decomposition in the jars. So, and anyways, any type of idea of the jars could also be a way of making ancient wine. I don't know, but still, it's pretty weird. Looking at a weird bumpy rock turns out to be an imprint of secrets waiting to be untold, or to be told. The Cherokee people who lived in the mountainside of western North Carolina used to tell a tale of an ancient giant named Judakula. As the legend has it, he would jump from the mountain to mountain and move across rugged landscape with ease, and when he needed to catch his balance mid-jump, he'd place his massive hands on a boulder. One of these boulders has supposedly have left the imprints of his 7 fingers, and to this day, Cherokee locals call the strange massive stones outcropping the Judakula rock, and they believe the giant had has huge digits left an eternal imprint on it. Old pictures of the rock from the 1930s seem to show more of the prominent 7 fingers in a much more noticeable contrast. In recent decades, the weather has actually dramatically taken its toll on the massive boulder, and the soapstone carvings fingers and their host of their Cherokee carvings from way back when are slowly being stripped away by weather and the inevitable passage of time. Archaeologists believe that the whole thing does date back over 3,000 years ago, but beyond that, specifics are scarce. Interestingly enough, locals claim that there are actually two other stones in the area that also happens to have this mysterious giant's hand and fingerprints too. Another treasure tale that would probably never be resolved is more ancient. In 1952, a copper scroll was found by the archaeologists in a cave alongside the Dead Sea Scrolls at the site of Qumran. It is also, the name suggests, that the writing was engraved into copper scroll. The scroll records a vast amount of hidden gold and silver treasure, so much in fact that the scholars believe that it is impossible for it to exist. The scroll dates back more than 1,900 years in a time where Roman Empire controlled the Qumran area. There was actual numbers of revolts against Roman rule at the time as the scroll was written, and scientists have hypothesized that the treasure was actually hidden to prevent its capture by Roman forces. Whether the treasure is real or where exactly it was hidden, whether if it was ever found or could be existing today, are all mysteries that will never likely to be solved, as it still remains in history. And speaking of history, that's all for today. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. My name is Jess and I wish you all the best. Bye.